Rural horrors like Jeepers Creepers, Thanksgiving, even High Tension thrive thanks to a relatively unpopulated area, lots of hiding places, and stereotypical simpletons who make dumb decisions when faced with impending terror. Clown in a Cornfield draws on these similar tropes and then introduces a killer clown. Typically, this is nightmare fuel. So can this new slasher deliver? Quinn and her father have just moved to the quiet town of Kettle Springs, hoping for a fresh start. Instead, she discovers a fractured community that has fallen on hard times. As the locals bicker amongst themselves and tensions boil over, a sinister, grinning figure emerges from the cornfields to cleanse the town of its burdens, one bloody victim at a time, when Frendo the clown comes out to play. So we've got another teen slasher film that draws upon the generally accepted rational fear of clowns. And right from the start of the movie, we are given a reason to fear the makeup menace who lingers in the fields simply because they're deranged, deadly, and then looking to kill. The movie then takes an extended break from the violence to briefly introduce us to the newest family to this small town, Quinn and her father. So many movies follow the template that's laid out by Scream and many before it, where we get a shocking scene at the start, then takes the time to introduce us to the characters we'll most likely be following for the rest of the film. At least, some of the people. And this does the same thing, but for some unknown reason, despite taking quite a while with characters before reintroducing violence, the players are still very much unknowns. Some background we get through conversations, so we do begin to understand who they are. Problem is, they're also not very endearing or likable. That's a massive story issue if we're supposed to be concerned for their well-being. Now, eventually, the characters do take on more sympathetic personas, but that's much farther into the story, meaning we've had to stick with them for quite a while before they earn our attachment. Now, Quinn meets a handful of people on her first day at school. They look like they're the in crowd, but are met with so much vague disdain from a lot of the townspeople. We eventually get a thin reason, but thanks to so many of the characters within the town being absolute strangers to us, it is a leap to believe that there would be so much ire directed at these kids. It also feels like the story is missing a portion of background development that we should be privy to, but we aren't. Now, I've not read the novel by Adam Cesare, so I can't say if it contains more character definition, but this adaptation certainly could have used a little more time spent on establishing the characters that are within the town before running us off into the action. There are some clever setups within this designed to misdirect and create false leads. And the story's proficient in establishing these and then maintaining the intrigue through a lot of the movie. There were moments and people that I suspected, but thanks to how scenes were executed, I couldn't ever be quite sure if I was right or not. Now, the storytelling is very uneven and then even a bit confused at what it wants to be. There's a level of campiness to it, which I think works. The small town cliche of rebellious, horny teens who find themselves in trouble, it's effective and plausible. Plus, the looming bloodshed builds some tension. But intermingled within this is a semi-comedy. Like, the humor's there, but it's delivered in such a way that the tone of the scene makes us uncertain if we're supposed to laugh. And a portion of the narrative feels like it's drawing inspiration from Edgar Wright's Hot Fuzz, but without the acerbic and hilarious wit or social commentary. There's also a slight romance angle that delivers one of the subtlest and hilarious segments of the entire movie. It's done in such a way that if you're not fully paying attention, it's going to pass right by. There's this moment of realization by a couple of the characters, and their collective response I thought was brilliant. But the division of suspense, angst, anxiety, humor, thrills, it isn't evenly distributed, or even balanced in a way that complements and builds on each other. Instead, we have choppy segments that transition from one emotion to the other in haphazard ways, leading to an overall mixture that comes across as more confused than confident. Now, something the film does do well, though, is in the violence department. The practical effects are wonderful and gross, showcasing gory wounds that can turn the stomach. There are also many sudden actions that can make you jump a bit, but they're not designed as jump scares, just simply the natural reaction to quickly executed behaviors. I also like that the film holds on to a few surprises once the true bloodshed begins. The mounting violence, it's exciting, and exactly what a movie like this needs to deliver. I could have actually used a lot more, but what we do get is still satisfyingly gross and gnarly. Now, because the storytelling is a bit disjointed and uncertain of what tone it really wants to pursue, once we get to the finale, there's a large villain exposition dump that minimizes any of the previous anxiety and then all but halts the pacing. The rambling is cheap and it's safe, drawing on uninspired ideas that we've heard and seen so many times before. There's a certain level of depraved darkness within the rationale, but having it all spelled out makes it less ominous or horrifying, which then leads to a lackluster conclusion. And then there's a piece that's left dangling without any explanation. And I can't tell if it's just a huge mistake or if the story has more planned for the future. But there's no indication of either, so it remains as a strange storytelling decision more than anything else. And even the final scene is supposed to add intrigue or maybe some dread, but it simply just isn't effective. So overall, Clown in a Cornfield has a lot of potential when it comes to creepy vibes and brutal kills. The rural location mixed with sketchy townspeople lends itself to an unsettling environment that unfortunately the story doesn't capitalize on. With uneven storytelling and a tonally confused plot, the suspense and dread are diminished, leading to the reliance on uninspired slasher tropes and cliches. The violence and practical effects are the highlights of the movie, creating nasty visuals that showcase brutality and surprise with abrupt gore. This could have been a great entry in the rural horror genre, and the novel might be outstanding, but this adaptation leaves a lot to be desired and is better watched at home than at the cinema. There's no sex or nudity, ton of profanity, and then a lot of gruesome violence. I give Clown in a Cornfield 2 out of 5 couches. So do you have any favorite clown-themed films? I saw the movie Clown a few years ago. That premise was upsetting. But the one I love to watch is Killer Clowns from Outer Space. And it's the right mix of camp, humor, and semi-horror. I would love to hear your choices, though, in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.